Sometimes unboxing a statue is kind of like playing poker. Happy, sad, happy, sad, happy, sad. This guy was no exception. Thanks for tuning into the Xtreme channel. My name's Mr. X. We're all about high-end collectibles here, and I have another one in front of me. If you don't know who this is, God help you, this is Batman. This is a custom, which means it's a private unlicensed commission, 1/4 scale. They took Batman in real life, even though he's not real, and they shrunk him down 4 times smaller than he would be. I've been anticipating this piece for a long time. I think it was actually supposed to ship late 2019, but I finally got him in September of 2020, because if you've been asleep, the world kind of blew up. And are you guys wondering? I'm wondering, is this going to poke me in the eye? As I alluded to in the intro, there's definitely some crazy stuff going on here. I am so torn. I don't think I've ever been this torn on a statue. And as a little teaser, you think you have trouble getting dressed in the morning? Batman, especially this Batman, has a lot more issues. So what we're going to do today is we're going to review this piece. We're going to look at the paint, the sculpt, the design. And this is my first piece from this custom studio. I actually purchased it because a buddy reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I'm partially involved with this project. Will you support it?" I said, absolutely, because I really wanted a blue Batman. I realized all the Batman statues I've ever owned, I've never had a normal Batman. And I don't want one that's too boring, but I don't want one that's too elaborate. And I think this one fits the bill. Before we find more out about this guy, go ahead and check out this statue giveaway we're doing. We are going to hit 20,000 subscribers in 2020. To do that, we're giving away a statue every 2,500 subs. At 15,000 subs, the winner will get to choose between these two PCS Mortal Kombat statues. Make sure that you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, and you've hit that bell notification. Then stay tuned towards the end of this video to find out how to enter. One of the best parts of this piece is the concept. As I said, I want something that's not too elaborate, yet not too plain, and I think this guy fits the bill. It has a lot of ties to Batman, but it isn't overwhelming. So on the bottom here, you almost have like what I think like a chemical plant. You know, kind of some of Joker's origins. You have this orange, weird-looking, rusty base. It could be a sewer. I think it, like I said, I think it's more like a chemical plant with some hoses. I love how deteriorated it is. We'll talk more about that in paint. And as you move up, it's homage to Joker. You have a couple of different things going on here. You have Harley Quinn's hammer. You have a Joker statue. You have cards. And Batman standing on top of it, almost like he toppled the Joker Empire. You always see Batman high up. This may or may not be the case here. His cape is flowing in the wind. He's very serious. There's a number of switch outs on this part. He's holding his cape with his right hand. This particular switch out, he's actually holding his cowl with his left hand. And you see his unmasked portrait. And I think this is one of the best unmasked Bruce Waynes I've ever seen. I really like this. And his suit is the original Batman with some modern ties to it. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted this statue. Now, they did actually offer this in a black variant as well. Here's a picture of that. But almost every other Batman statue I've owned was black. So that's one thing that really turned me on about this concept. I absolutely love it. With the switch outs especially, I thought I was going to for sure pose it like this. And I probably will, even though I don't think this is my favorite. And we'll find out about that in design. But concept overall, I think it's a 5 out of 5. It's an awesome Batman statue. It's different. It talks about his origins. Classic costume, at least for me. His main enemy. I love the concept of this piece. Now we're going to talk about design, which is where all the problems started, and they kept on going. So before I show you the unboxing and assembly, I want to show some broken parts where it arrived broken, and then we're going to look at some other broken parts that happened during the assembly. But first, on his right hand here, his wrist blade was broken. Thankfully, I was able to find the piece. Right here, one of his portraits, the ears were broken off. And what was strange is in the packaging, the cape was resting on top of this. So maybe it wasn't the smartest packing idea. Another broken piece is on his cape right here. Now this didn't happen in transit. I did this, so I'll tell you how I did that. And one of his batarangs here came unseated from his hand as well. And then some scrapes. So there were some imperfections right here on the cape. So before we check out the assembly, I want to show you the switch outs because that's really important to the assembly and some of the design issues we had. First, as you see, here is his unmasked portrait. I like this one a lot. It's a very serious, stoic Bruce Wayne. All of them are very stoic expressions. And then if you want, you can have him holding his cowl in his left hand, which to me makes sense because otherwise where's his cowl? Or you can switch it out for his battering hand, almost Wolverine type here. Then also, you could just do a plain hand, which I will never use. This will go back in the box. The other two portraits, as I said, are both very stoic, and they have the cowl on. This one, he looks forward, just like he does with the unmasked portrait. And then this one, very similar expression, a little bit different. He's actually looking to the right. And that last one was actually the broken one, which I won't display because I like him looking forward. But I still think it flows well with the statue. All right, let's get the dimensions on him too. Now, I was a little worried. You know, he goes out almost 26 and a half, 27 inches, which is unfortunate. But you could always put another character right in front of the cape. Height-wise, he's almost 22 inches. And then the deepest part, you're probably about 15. So standard for a quarter-scale figure that's not... standard for a quarter-scale figure that's not terribly elaborate. Here is the assembly. It was a very large box, and it was considerably heavy too, a lot heavier than I thought it would be. Custom white foam on the inside. It was hard to tell what's the top and what's the bottom. Here's kind of the inside of it to give you an idea. And what was interesting was how they packed the cape. Very unique, very different. The base right here. Very heavy, by the way. That's where most of the weight was. Took a second to get Batman in. He keyed in fine. I just had to push down on him pretty hard to make sure that he was flush. Now here's the problem. So you have to put on the head first underneath the cape, and then the cape on top of that into two keyholes, and it isn't even. You can see I have to actually try and fit it flush. But the bigger problem is then his right arm goes in between his cape and his right wrist. And there's almost no room to work on it from the front or the back. And it is so tight and so flush that it puts pressure on both the arm and the cape itself, which then puts pressure on the keyholes that the cape is in at the top. And the cape's even touching the bottom, as you see right here. It was not easy at all. In fact, it was so difficult, you can't get it out now. That's what she said. Then his left arm, pretty easy to assemble, key and magnet. And then the hammer, I'm not sure where that was supposed to set. It almost looked like in pictures there was a hole that it would guide into, but it really just sets on there. Now, I have some experience assembling a few statues here and there. This design option was horrible. Horrible. So the different points of contact is the cape comes across each shoulder blade. It has to sit flush with the portrait under it while it's sitting on the hand that barely fits in between. I can't even get the hand out anymore. The cape sits right here. It presses against this point of contact. And then all the weight is pressing on the foot that actually keys down. So I have no idea why they chose to do that. Surely there was a different way. Maybe they should have designed it a different way. But in my opinion, huge miss. Even before I had broken that piece. It was on the third portrait that I actually switched it out and I broke that piece. Maybe my piece is bent differently, but I feel like you have to have 5 different hands to get this all in at the same time. And even with everything in, there's still a gap up here, which is very disappointing. So I appreciate the ambition on the cape, but even this piece right here, I'm scared to death it's going to break off. It is made of a PVC or a very light resin, which is nice, so there's not a lot of weight or leaning issues. But I don't know if this is supposed to be on top of this, because it just won't sit flush no matter what you do it. The left shoulder might sit flush, but then the right shoulder won't. And it could have bent with the weather, granted. But like I said, I can't even get this right piece off. So if I want to switch portraits, I actually have to keep the cape in and kind of push it up on the left shoulder. So horrible switch out process. Which is so unfortunate because it has some great switch out options. So with the damages in shipping, with the inability to switch things out perfectly, with some of the blemishes, I normally would give this design a 1, an absolute lowest score, but I have to acknowledge that even though I put together tons of statues and I spent 45 minutes trying to get this right, it could be user error. So I think we'll grade it up to a 2 because the design's still bad even if you do it perfectly, I think. It's a 2 out of 5 on the design, which is such an incredible shame because the paint and sculpt is rather good. Let's check it out. Here's pictures of this base. I love the color they chose. I think it contrasts really well with the statue, and it has this puke yellow type color with this Rust-Oleum red and orange kind of on top of it. Like, even if I didn't think about Joker in a chemical plant, my mind would immediately go there to the way this is designed with the tubes and the hoses and kind of the grates, almost like sewer grates on the outside. They kind of look like speakers a little bit. The rocks on the base, not the Joker statue, but the rocks on the base are probably the worst part of the statue. They're not very good. They're a little too smooth for me. And I wish they would have done a different color than... And I wish there would have been more color variation to the Joker statue itself, because you kind of think this is the cement, and then the statue would have been sculpted differently. The cards also look a little cheap, and I think it's because they're so thick. The hammer looks fantastic. They did a great job on this, both the paint and sculpt, kind of this old wooden effect. I really like it, this dark oak. Same thing with the Joker statue. The head looks fantastic. I love where they put the cracks, the sculpt on it, not only of Joker's face itself, but where it's damaged. Very nicely done, especially with the cracks. I like how the cracks are originating from his foot. Batman himself, I love his costume on this. I absolutely do. His boots, standard boots, you have this leather-like texture, a whole bunch of different folds which flow with the position of Batman. His traditional blue colors, and then as you move up to his pants, more folds and creases and seams, and it's not and the pants isn't perfect. You almost see like some damage to it. I love the shading on this pattern gray material. His anatomy is done really well, especially with the weird awkward pose he's in. He's not over muscularized. He's very, very fit, which I like. They didn't give him a huge bat package, which for me is nice because then I'm not as intimidated. His outside underwear has a different texture than anywhere else. His belt, very nice, very worn. I like how the color on the buckle is a little bit different than the pouches. It's more of a metallic as opposed to the piss yellow. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean that as an insult. It looks really good, and there's tons of detail in the paint and the sculpt of these pouches. And then his torso, you see a lot of what you saw with his legs. He's very muscular, but they didn't make him like he has 0% body fat. More of kind of like a bat fleck to me. I love the black leather type material in the middle with your traditional Batman logo up at the top. And that's even a different yellow than you see anywhere else on the statue. Really well done anatomy. When I was putting this on, his back is equally done as well, and you can't see it because of the cape. So huge props to them. Oh, the cape is fantastic. The paint's a little sloppy on it. It's almost caked in a few different areas, especially where it's kind of torn at the end. And I like how it's torn because you got to think if he's kicking ass all the time, he doesn't have new capes. Some good shadowing in this as well. So pros and cons on the cape. First, here's his unmasked portrait. Like I said, good stoic expression. He has a 5 o'clock shadow. It is partially sculpted in, but not very much. I think they could have done a little more differentiation in the eyebrows. I like it. When you think of Batman, you don't think of a ton of expression at all. And here's both of his other portraits together. So the portrait where it's broken and he's looking to the right, I don't like it much because his lips are way too pouty. I think that's a big miss on this portrait. The other one, he kind of has this frown. He doesn't have enough lips. So it's interesting that they went in that direction. One's almost too much, one's too little. And even the cowl looks a little bit different. I like the sculpt of this piece a lot. I think the sculpt is almost a 5 out of 5, but the portraits make it a little bit of a miss. So I think it's a 4 out of 5 on the sculpt. It's a rail. And paint, to me, I love the paint on 90% of the statue except the cape. I think there's some misses on it, but I think it's still worth a 4 out of 5 on the paint, which really excites me, actually, because this was a more competitively priced custom piece. So when we talk about value, they made 30 of these, and I don't know if they made 30 blue ones or 30 total. It says 30 on the bottom. You saw that during the assembly. Like I said, they made a black variant. They also made this in 1/6 scale, which would have had a different edition size. But price on this was a steal. It was only $550, which is crazy for a 1/4 scale custom. So I definitely think the value is high on this low edition size, $550. Shipping was an issue. Originally, shipping was $400. One cool thing is they let us keep it at the factory for a few months, hoping the prices would go down, and I think eventually it went down to like $300. So you're $800 all in for a very rare Batman. Design things suck. The broken parts suck. But I think the values on this is very strong. It's a 4 out of 5 on the value. So overall, does this have the X factor? Is it a 5 out of 5 statue? It's not a cumulative score. It's just how I feel about it overall. The design stuff really pisses me off. It really does. Some of it I'm mad at myself, but a lot of it I'm mad at, there should have been a better design because I really like this Batman. I think other than the Samurai Batmans, he's going to be the only 1/4 scale Batman that I have, and I think he's all you need. But I really wish it'd be easier to switch out his portraits. So he's definitely at least a 3 out of 5, but 4 out of 5 is what I'm debating on with the design. So today I'm not going to rank an overall. So I want you to put it in the comments below. Is this a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or a 2 or a 1 overall statue? What would you grade it 1 through 5? And the reason I want you to comment is it'll help you win that giveaway. To win one of these Mortal Kombat statues, all you have to do is comment on a video. At 15,000 subscribers, I'm going to pick a random video and pick a random comment. That person will win the prize. They can choose between these two pieces. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If you want to see where he looks in my collection, go ahead and check out the Xtreme Channel Facebook page. You can also check out some of these other custom statues in this playlist. And lastly, if you haven't subbed, hit that Mr. X logo, the bell notification. Lots of cool stuff like this coming in. Talk to you tomorrow. Take care.